The massive doors of the council chamber slid open with a deep hiss. Jiho Kong stepped through, carrying nothing but a simple data tablet tucked under his arm. His black suit looked plain compared to the elaborate robes, armor, and environmental suits worn by the other delegates filling the enormous circular room. The chamber itself was a marvel of engineering. Built into an asteroid at the edge of neutral space, it could accommodate beings of every size and atmospheric need. Energy barriers separated zones with different gravity and air mixtures. Some delegates floated in zero-gravity bubbles. Others stood on platforms raised high above the floor. A few sat submerged in tanks of glowing liquid. 47 species had gathered today. This was the largest assembly in 30 years, and they were all here because of one thing: humanity. Jiho walked calmly to the human delegation's assigned spot, a simple raised platform near the center. He was alone. Every other species had brought dozens of advisors, military officers, and support staff. The contrast was obvious and intentional. A massive creature rose from the highest platform. Tharn was a Velcros, standing nearly 4 meters tall on 6 powerful legs. His armored hide was deep purple, and his 4 eyes glowed with barely contained anger. As the council leader, he had the authority to open the session. This emergency gathering is now in session. Tharn's voice boomed through the translation systems. We are here to address a threat to galactic peace, a threat that has grown too large to ignore. Jiho sat down and placed his tablet on the small table in front of him. He crossed his legs and waited. Humanity has violated every standard of civilized expansion, Tharn continued. In just 40 of our standard years, they have claimed 23 star systems. They have established colonies without proper council authorization. They have built military stations in regions they have no right to occupy. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Several delegates gestured or vocalized their support. A Chitrix delegate stood next. The insectoid being clicked its mandibles rapidly before speaking. They have stolen mining rights from my people. We had surveyed the Kepler 442 system first. We had filed the proper claims. Yet human ships arrived and began extracting resources as if we did not exist. The humans have no respect for established territories, added a Pelleran floating in its water tank. The aquatic being's tentacles writhed with agitation. Their vessels passed through our sovereign space 14 times in the past year. They ignored our warnings. They ignored our patrol ships. More voices joined in. The chamber filled with accusations and complaints. The humans were too aggressive, too secretive, too unpredictable. They refused to share their faster-than-light drive technology, even though council law required all major technological advances to be registered and made available for study. Through it all, Jiho sat quietly. He occasionally made notes on his tablet. His expression never changed. He did not argue or defend. He simply listened. After nearly an hour of complaints, Tharn addressed him directly. Ambassador Kang, these are serious charges. How do you respond? Jiho looked up slowly. I would like to request something before I respond. What is that? I would like each delegation to provide me with their complete roster. Every member of your team here today, every advisor, every military officer, every support staff member, please send the information to my tablet. Silence filled the chamber. Several delegates exchanged confused glances. Why do you need this information? Asked a crystalline shard-born delegate. Its body refracted light in strange patterns as it spoke. Diplomatic protocol, Jiho said simply. Earth wishes to have accurate records of who is present for this historic meeting. Tharn's eyes narrowed. This is an unusual request. But not an unreasonable one, Jiho replied. Unless there is something you wish to hide? The subtle challenge worked. One by one, the delegations sent their information. It was a simple thing. Just names and positions, surely harmless. Within minutes, Jiho's tablet had received data from all 47 species. "Thank you," Jiho said. He began scrolling through the information, his face illuminated by the soft glow of the screen. "Now then," Tharn said, his voice sharp, "you will answer the charges against your species." "I will," Jiho agreed. "But first, I have a few questions of my own. Simple clarifications to make sure I understand the accusations correctly." Tharn gestured impatiently. "Proceed." Jiho looked at the Chitrix delegate. "You mentioned a survey ship in the Kepler system. What was the name of that vessel?" The Chitrix hesitated. The Harvester 7. Jiho made a note. "And when did it complete its survey?" 12 years ago. "Thank you." Jiho turned to the Pelleran. "You said our ships violated your territory 14 times. Can you tell me which of your admirals authorized the patrol routes your ships were following?" The Pelleran's tentacles stilled. "I would need to check our records." "Of course. Take your time." Jiho made another note. He asked similar questions of other delegates, small details, technical points, things that seemed insignificant. But several of the more observant delegates began to feel uneasy. Why was the human asking such specific questions? And why did he seem so calm when his entire species was being threatened with sanctions or worse? In the back of the human section, a young woman worked at a portable console. Hana Yoon was listed as a junior diplomatic assistant in the official roster, but her fingers moved across the holographic interface with the speed and precision of someone doing much more than taking notes. Data flowed across her screens. Files opened and closed. Encryption protocols cycled. She glanced at something on her display and allowed herself the briefest smile. Then she caught herself and returned to a neutral expression. But a few delegates had noticed. "What is your assistant doing?" demanded a reptilian Skorath delegate. Jiho glanced back at Hana. "Taking notes, recording this session for Earth's archives. Is that a problem?" "She seems very busy for simple note-taking." "Humans are thorough," Jiho said. "It is one of our better qualities." Tharn slammed one of his massive legs against the platform. The impact echoed through the chamber. "Enough of these games. We did not gather here to answer your questions, Ambassador. We are here to decide what to do about the human problem." "The human problem," Jiho repeated softly. "Yes. Let us address that." He stood and faced the assembled delegates. "I propose that this council vote on the following motion. Humanity will be restricted to its current 23 systems. All human expansion will cease. Human technology will be placed under council oversight. Human vessels will be prohibited from entering council space without explicit permission." Tharn looked surprised. "You are proposing your own sanctions?" "I am stating what you intend to propose," Jiho said. "Am I wrong?" The silence that followed was answer enough. "I thought not," Jiho said. He sat back down. "Very well. I request 1 hour before this vote. 1 hour to present Earth's formal response to this council. Surely that is not too much to ask." Tharn consulted with other senior council members. After a brief discussion, he turned back to Jiho. "You will have your hour, but no more delays after that. We vote today." "Agreed," Jiho said. He returned his attention to his tablet. His finger moved across the screen, scrolling through data that none of the other delegates could see. In the back, Hana continued her work, her face now completely neutral. The council chamber buzzed with conversation. Many delegates seemed confident that this was already over. The humans would plead their case, and then the vote would pass. Humanity would be contained. The threat would be neutralized. But a few of the older, more experienced delegates felt something else, a sense of unease they could not quite name. The human ambassador was too calm, too prepared, too willing to accept what should have been a devastating defeat. Something was wrong. They just did not know what yet. The debate stretched across 3 long days. Jiho had requested 1 hour, but the council decided to be thorough. They wanted to document every human transgression. They wanted a complete record that would justify whatever actions they decided to take. Delegate after delegate stood to present their cases. Each one brought evidence of human wrongdoing, charts showing human expansion rates, maps marking territorial disputes, economic analyses claiming humans were disrupting established trade networks. The Chitrix presented detailed accusations about mining rights. They displayed holographic images of rich asteroid fields in 3 different systems. "We surveyed these first," their lead delegate insisted. "We filed proper claims with the council registry. Yet human mining operations moved in and began extracting resources within months." Jiho listened carefully. When the Chitrix finished, he asked, "Can you provide the exact dates when your survey ships completed their work?" "Yes, of course." The Chitrix pulled up records. The Kepler 442 survey was completed 14 standard years ago. The Ross 128 survey was 12 years ago. The Wolf 1061 survey was 13 years ago. "Thank you." Jiho made notes on his tablet. "And when did your government approve the mining expeditions to these sites?" The Chitrix hesitated. "That information is internal to our government." "I understand. But roughly?" "We were still in the planning stages when your ships arrived." "Planning stages for more than 10 years?" "These things take time." Jiho nodded and made more notes. He did not argue or accuse. He simply recorded the information and moved on. The Pelorans were next. Their delegate floated in its containment tank, tentacles gesturing dramatically. "Human vessels have repeatedly violated our territorial waters, space that has belonged to my people for 600 years. They pass through without permission, without even acknowledging our communications." "I apologize for any confusion," Jiho said. "Can you provide the coordinates of these violations? I want to ensure our fleet commanders understand which regions are off limits." The Peloran provided a list. Jiho studied it carefully. "Interesting," he said. "Several of these coordinates are in sectors that appear in council records as unclaimed space." "Those records are outdated," the Peloran said quickly. "When did they become outdated?" "We expanded our territorial claims 8 years ago." "And this expansion was filed with the council?" Another hesitation. "We are in the process of updating the documentation." "For 8 years?" The Peloran's tentacles writhed, but offered no response. This pattern repeated again and again. The Shardborn accused humans of contaminating primitive cultures. Jiho asked for specifics. The primitive cultures in question had already developed industrial spaceflight before humans arrived. The Skorath claimed humans were militarizing neutral zones. Jiho requested proof. The proof showed Skorath vessels conducting weapons tests in the same zones just months before humans arrived. Each time, Jiho asked his simple questions. Each time, the answers revealed inconsistencies or exaggerations. But he never pointed this out directly. He simply recorded everything and thanked the delegates for their cooperation. Hana continued her work in the background. Her console displayed streams of data that she analyzed with quiet intensity. Occasionally, she would send something to Jiho's tablet. He would glance at it, nod slightly, and continue with his questions. On the second day, a Velcros military commander stood to present evidence of human military buildup. "They have constructed armed stations in 17 systems," the commander announced. "Stations equipped with weapons capable of threatening any ship that approaches." "Defensive weapons," Jiho noted. "Our stations are designed to protect our colonies. Your weapons are pointed at Council space." "Our weapons are pointed in all directions," Jiho corrected. "That is how defensive perimeters work. But I am curious about something, Commander. What were your ships doing in the Proxima system 2 months ago?" The commander's armored plates shifted. "Routine patrol. In human territory? We were monitoring the situation. With how many vessels? That is classified military information. Jiho smiled faintly. Of course. Forgive me for asking. But several delegates noticed that Hana was no longer looking at her console. She was watching the Velcro's commander with an expression that might have been amusement. When she noticed others looking at her, she quickly returned to her work. The third day brought more accusations: economic interference, cultural contamination, technology hoarding. The humans were accused of every possible violation of council norms and regulations. Through it all, Jiho remained calm and attentive. He asked his questions. He took his notes. He thanked each delegate politely. He never raised his voice. He never showed anger or frustration. Some delegates began to find this disturbing. They were accusing his entire species of crimes that could result in complete isolation or worse. Yet he sat there as if discussing the weather. "Does nothing concern you, Ambassador?" asked a tall, thin Ethan delegate. "Do you not understand the gravity of this situation?" "I understand completely," Jiho replied. "My species stands accused of many things. Some true, some false, some exaggerated. I am simply trying to understand the full scope of the concerns so that Earth can respond appropriately." "And what will that response be?" "You will know soon enough." During breaks between sessions, Jiho and Hana worked together in a small room assigned to the human delegation. No other delegates were allowed in, but a few tried to listen at the door. They heard nothing useful, just the soft sounds of fingers on keyboards and occasional quiet conversations. "Are you getting all of it?" Jiho asked during one of these breaks. "Everything," Hana confirmed. "The network access they gave us for diplomatic communications turned out to be much more useful than they intended. They do not suspect. Not yet. They think we are just taking notes and filing reports back to Earth." "Good. Keep it that way." On the evening of the third day, Tharn called for order. "We have heard enough testimony," he announced. "Tomorrow we will vote on the proposed sanctions. Ambassador Kang, you will have your hour to present Earth's response tomorrow morning. Prepare your arguments well." Jiho stood and bowed slightly. "Thank you, Council Leader. I will be ready." As the delegates filed out of the chamber, many of them discussed what the human might say. Some thought he would plead for mercy. Others expected him to argue legal technicalities. A few suspected he would try to buy time with promises of compliance. None of them suspected the truth. That night, Jiho and Hana worked late. Their console screens filled with data collected over 3 days of seemingly innocent questions: ship names, admiral identities, patrol routes, survey dates, territorial claims, economic transactions. Piece by piece, they assembled a puzzle that none of the council delegates realized existed. "It is all here," Hana said, reviewing the final compilation. "Every inconsistency, every lie, every scheme." "And the other files?" Jiho asked. "Ready to go. Once we start the presentation, I can display anything we need." Jiho looked at the data for a long moment. Then he closed his tablet and stood. "Get some rest. Tomorrow will be difficult." "Are you worried they will reject what we show them?" "No," Jiho said. "I am worried about what happens when they accept it. We are about to change everything." He walked to the small window in their quarters. Outside, the stars shone in the eternal darkness of space. Somewhere out there, Earth waited to hear what happened here. Billions of humans who had no idea that their entire future was being decided in this cold asteroid chamber. But they had sent Jiho because they trusted him. They trusted him to do what needed to be done, not just for humanity, but for everyone. "The truth is a weapon," he said softly, still looking at the stars. "But unlike most weapons, it becomes more powerful when shared." Hana joined him at the window. "Do you think they will understand that?" "Some will. Immediately. Others will resist. But eventually, They will all realize the same thing. What is that? Jiho turned from the window. His calm expression was unchanged. But something burned in his eyes. Something that had been there all along, hidden behind his polite questions and careful notes. That humanity did not come here to be judged, he said. We came here to change the rules of the game. The next morning, every delegate returned to the chamber. The vote was scheduled for midday, but first the human would have his hour. Tharn called the session to order. Ambassador Kang, you may present Earth's response. Jiho stood and walked to the center of the chamber. He carried only his tablet. Hana remained at the console, her fingers poised and ready. Thank you, Council Leader, Jiho said. His voice was clear and steady. Before we begin, I must ask one final question. Tharn's eyes narrowed. What question? Are you ready for the truth? The chamber fell silent. Delegates looked at each other in confusion. What kind of question was that? Jiho smiled. It was not a warm smile. It was the smile of someone who had been waiting 3 days for this exact moment. Good, he said. Then let me show you something. He activated the chamber's main holographic display system. The massive projection field at the center of the room flickered to life, and the galaxy appeared before them. The holographic galaxy rotated slowly in the center of the chamber. Stars glowed in clusters and spirals, just as they did in the real universe outside. Blue markers appeared, highlighting the home worlds of every species present. Council space spread across thousands of light years. This is what you see when you look at the galaxy, Jiho said calmly. Your territories, your claimed systems, your sphere of influence. Several delegates nodded. This was common knowledge, nothing surprising. Now let me show you what we see. Red markers began appearing on the map. First a few, then dozens, then hundreds, then thousands. The chamber filled with shocked murmurs. The red markers covered everything. They orbited every single council homeworld. They lined every major trade route. They sat at every strategic choke point. They surrounded every military installation. They appeared in systems that no species had even bothered to explore yet. What is this? Tharn demanded, rising to his full height. What are these markers? Human observation posts, Jiho replied. His voice remained perfectly level. We have been watching you, all of you, for 15 years. The murmurs turned to shouts. Delegates jumped to their feet. Some activated communication devices to contact their governments. Others began arguing with each other across the chamber. Silence! Tharn roared. The translation systems amplified his voice until the walls themselves seemed to shake. Order slowly returned, but the fear and anger in the room were obvious. This is an act of war, the Chitrix delegate hissed. You have violated every system in council space. You have spied on our homeworlds. You have surrounded us with military installations. No, Jiho said firmly. These are not military installations. They are observation platforms, sensor arrays, monitoring stations. They have no weapons. They cannot attack anyone. But they can watch us, the Peloran said, its tentacles thrashing in agitation. You have been observing our private communications, our fleet movements, our internal affairs. Yes, Jiho agreed simply. How? Demanded a Shard-born delegate, its crystalline body pulsing with angry light. How did you place thousands of stations without anyone noticing? Because you were not looking, Jiho said. You saw humans as primitive newcomers. You thought our 23 systems represented the limit of our reach. You assumed we were being honest about our capabilities. He gestured at the hologram. You were wrong. Hana worked at her console, and the display zoomed in on specific locations. This is a monitoring station 300 kilometers from the Velcros homeworld, Jiho explained. It has been there for 12 years. This one orbits the Chitrix colony world of Harvester Prime, operational for 14 years. This one watches the Pelleran military shipyards at Kepler 62. 10 years. Each example hit like a physical blow. The dates proved that humans had been capable of reaching deep into council space long before anyone suspected. "Why?" asked an elderly Skorath delegate. Her voice was quiet, but it carried across the chamber. "Why did you do this?" "To answer exactly the question you just asked," Jiho replied. "Why? Why do things happen in this galaxy? Why do species make the choices they make? Why do wars start? Why does peace fail?" He turned to face the full assembly. "We did it to understand you, because understanding is the first step to survival." Tharn's 4 eyes blazed with fury. "You speak of survival while admitting you have violated every principle of sovereign space. You speak of understanding while you have been conducting espionage on a scale never seen before. What gives you the right?" "The same right any species has," Jiho said. "The right to ensure our own continued existence. When we first made contact with the Council, we were welcomed warmly, given a few systems, invited to trade. But we learned quickly that smiles and treaties mean nothing if the species around you are planning your destruction." "No one was planning your destruction," protested an Ethon delegate. "No?" Jiho gestured to Hana. She pulled up a new file. "This is a communication between Velcro's High Command and the Chitrix War Council, dated 6 months ago. Let me read the relevant section." Jiho's voice remained calm as he read. "The human expansion represents a threat to established power structures. If they are allowed to continue, they will destabilize the entire region. We propose a joint military operation to neutralize their major colonies while preserving their homeworld for future study." The chamber exploded in chaos again. Tharn's armored hide flushed darker purple. "That communication is classified at the highest level. How did you—" "We have been watching," Jiho repeated. "Did you think we would place thousands of monitoring stations and not use them?" Other delegates began accusing the Velcros and Chitrix of betrayal. Both species tried to defend themselves. Arguments broke out across the chamber. Jiho waited. After several minutes, he spoke again, and somehow his quiet voice cut through the noise. "This is not about the Velcros and Chitrix. They are not unique." More files appeared on the display. "Here is a Pelleran strategic document discussing the economic advantages of forcing humans to depend on Pelleran trade routes. Here is a Shard-born cultural assessment recommending that human colony development be restricted to prevent them from becoming culturally dominant. Here is a Skorath analysis of human military technology with recommendations on how to steal it. Each revelation brought new accusations, new arguments, new betrayals exposed. Every species in this chamber has produced documents like these," Jiho said, "some more aggressive than others. But all of you have been planning what to do about the human problem, how to contain us, how to control us, how to use us, or if necessary, how to eliminate us." "Because you are dangerous," shouted a delegate from the back. "You expand too fast. You refuse to share your technology. You do not follow the established order." "No," Jiho said. "We do not, because the established order is broken." He gestured at the chaos in the chamber. "Look at yourselves. 3 days of testimony and we have exposed how many lies? How many falsified territorial claims? How many secret military operations? How many plots against each other?" The delegates fell quiet. The truth of his words was undeniable. "The Chitrix claimed we stole their mining rights," Jiho continued. "But their own internal records show they had no intention of mining those systems. They were sitting on the claims to prevent others from using them. The Pellerans claimed we violated their territory, but they sold that territory to a corporate entity 8 years ago and simply never updated the council records. The Shardborn claimed we contaminated primitive cultures, but those cultures had already achieved spaceflight on their own." He turned slowly, making eye contact with delegates around the chamber. You came here to judge humanity, but you built your case on lies and half-truths. Why? Because that is how this council operates. Not on facts, not on justice, on politics, on power, on whoever can craft the most convincing narrative. Tharn slammed his leg down again. Enough of your speeches. You have admitted to violating every system in this galaxy. You have spied on sovereign governments. You have broken every law of civilized space. Your accusations against us do not excuse your own crimes. You are absolutely right, Jiho said. The sudden agreement caught everyone off guard. We have violated your space, Jiho continued. We have monitored your communications without permission. We have operated in secret for 15 years. By the laws of this council, these are serious crimes. He paused. But we did not do this to harm you. We did it to protect ourselves from you. That is no excuse, Tharn growled. No, Jiho agreed. It is not an excuse. It is a reason. And it is a reason that exposes the fundamental problem with how this galaxy operates. He gestured at the hologram again. Every species here is afraid of every other species. You all spy on each other. You all make secret plans. You all prepare for wars you hope will never come. But because everyone is doing this in secret, no one trusts anyone, and that lack of trust makes the wars more likely, not less. The chamber was silent now. Every delegate was listening. Humanity learned this lesson the hard way, Jiho said softly. We fought each other for thousands of years, nation against nation, ideology against ideology. We nearly destroyed our own planet multiple times, but eventually, we learned something important. He looked around the chamber. Security does not come from secrets. It comes from transparency. Peace does not come from hidden strength. It comes from mutual understanding. Trust does not come from good intentions. It comes from verification. Tharn's voice was quieter now, but still hard. What are you proposing? Before I answer that, Jiho said, let me show you one more thing. The hologram changed again. Now it displayed fleet movements, dozens of species moving ships into position around human space. These are your current military deployments, Jiho said. 17 different species have moved vessels into position around our colonies over the past 6 months. You were preparing for this council meeting, preparing to enforce whatever decision you made. If you voted for sanctions, you would have the military power to enforce them. If you voted for occupation, you had the forces in place. If you voted for something more extreme, he let the implication hang in the air. We knew this was coming, Jiho said. We knew you were afraid of us. We knew you would eventually act. So we prepared, not with weapons, not with threats, but with truth. And now what? Asked the elderly Skorath delegate. You have exposed all of our secrets. You have proven you can reach anywhere in the galaxy. What do you want from us? Jiho smiled, and this time it was a genuine smile. We want to change everything. Jiho let his words settle over the chamber. Change everything. The delegates looked at each other nervously, some with suspicion, others with curiosity, all of them waiting to see what the human meant. Let me address each accusation that has been made, Jiho said, not with arguments or excuses, but with facts. The hologram shifted to show the Kepler 442 system. The Chitrix claim we stole their mining rights here. Let me show you what really happened. A timeline appeared. Dates and events scrolled past. The Chitrix survey ship Harvester 7 entered this system 14 years ago. They spent 6 months surveying the asteroid belt. They filed a claim with the Council Registry. All proper procedure. But then something interesting happened. Hana pulled up internal Chitrix communications. Jiho read from them. This is a message from the Chitrix Economic Ministry to their mining guild. Quote, the Kepler 442 belt contains valuable resources, but current market prices make extraction unprofitable. We will maintain the claim to prevent competitors from accessing the site until prices improve." End quote. He looked at the Chitrix delegate. "You were not planning to mine those asteroids. You were blocking others from mining them. You sat on the claim for 12 years waiting for prices to rise, and when human miners arrived and began operations, you suddenly decided the claim was valuable after all." "That is internal economic planning," the Chitrix protested. "How we manage our claims is our business." "Normally, yes," Jiho agreed. "But Council law states that resource claims must be actively developed within 10 years or they become open to other species. You violated your own regulations. We did not steal from you. We legally claimed abandoned territory." The Chitrix delegate sat down, its mandibles clicking in frustration. Jiho moved on. "The Pelleran territorial violations. Let me show you the truth about those as well." The hologram displayed a region of space marked in blue. "This is the area the Pellerans claim we violated, their so-called sovereign waters. But here is something interesting." Another document appeared. "This is a contract dated 9 years ago between the Pelleran government and the Andros Corporation. In this contract, the Pellerans sold exclusive economic and transit rights to 300 cubic light-years of space. This space." He highlighted the same region. "The Andros Corporation paid 1.7 billion credits for these rights." The Pelleran delegates' tentacles went very still. "Human vessels were transiting through this area under contracts with Andros Corporation," Jiho continued. "We had legal permission. We paid the proper fees. But the Pelleran government never updated the council registry. They kept the space listed as sovereign territory so they could claim violations whenever it suited them. Then they could demand additional fees or political concessions. The contract with Andros was temporary," the Pelleran said weakly. "It was a 50-year contract, with 41 years remaining." The Pelleran had no response. Jiho continued through the accusations one by one. The Shardborn's primitive cultures had been developing spaceflight for decades. The humans had not interfered. They had simply arrived after these cultures were already advanced. The Skorath's militarization claims ignored the fact that Skorath vessels had been testing weapons in the same neutral zones for years. Each revelation was supported by documents, communications, sensor logs, financial records, evidence gathered by human monitoring stations that no one had known existed. "Where did you get all of this?" demanded Tharn. "These are secured communications, encrypted files, internal government documents." "From your own systems," Jiho said simply. "When you communicate across space, those signals travel through areas where our monitoring stations operate. When you send encrypted files, you often use commercial encryption protocols that humanity has already broken. When you hold private meetings on your ships, you do not think to check for passive sensor monitoring from nearby objects that appear to be asteroids or debris." "You have been stealing our secrets for 15 years, a delegate shouted. "Yes," Jiho admitted. "Just as you have all been trying to steal ours. The difference is that we succeeded." He pulled up more files. "The Velcro's High Command has attempted to hack human computer networks 417 times in the past 3 years. The Chitrix Intelligence Service has tried 309 times. The Pellerans, 268 times. Should I continue?" The delegates shifted uncomfortably. No one wanted to admit what they had been doing. "Every species engages in espionage," Jiho said. "This is not news. What makes humanity different is not that we spy. It is that we are better at it than you are." Tharn's voice was cold with rage. "You seem very proud of yourselves. You have violated our privacy on an unimaginable scale. You have collected every secret, every private communication, every strategic plan, and now you use this information to embarrass us in front of each other. Is this what you call diplomacy?" "No," Jiho said. "This is what I call preparation, because I have not yet shown you the most important part." A new set of files appeared. These were different. more detailed, more specific. 3 weeks ago, the Velcro's High Command finalized plans for a military strike on the Chitrix colony of Harvester Prime, Jiho said. The operation was scheduled to begin in 6 months. The goal was to seize the colony's industrial facilities before the Chitrix could fortify them. Both the Velcros and Chitrix delegates jumped to their feet, shouting at each other. Jiho waited for them to quiet down. 5 weeks ago, the Pelleran Defense Ministry completed a threat assessment of the Shardborn expansion. They concluded that Shardborn crystal harvesting operations were getting too close to Pelleran core systems. They recommended a preemptive strike to destroy Shardborn mining infrastructure before it could be converted to military use. Now the Pellerans and Shardborn were shouting. 2 months ago, the Skorath intelligence service discovered that the Ethon government was secretly developing a new type of shield technology. The Skorath began planning an operation to steal this technology through industrial espionage and sabotage. More shouting, more accusations. The chamber descended into chaos. Jiho raised his voice slightly. Not shouting, but loud enough to be heard. I have documentation of 17 separate military operations being planned by Council species against other Council species, 12 economic warfare campaigns, 23 espionage operations, and 41 diplomatic initiatives designed to isolate or weaken rival species. He paused. And these are just the operations in active planning stages. The number of preliminary assessments, theoretical scenarios, and contingency plans is much higher. The shouting died down. Delegates looked around at each other with new suspicion and fear. Do you understand what I am showing you? Jiho asked. This council is not united. It is not peaceful. It is a collection of species all plotting against each other, all preparing for wars that have not started yet, all gathering intelligence on potential enemies. You are not afraid of humanity because we are dangerous. You are afraid of us because we are one more player in a game that already has too many players. Tharn's voice was quiet now, almost tired. What is your point, Ambassador? My point is that this cannot continue, Jiho said. You gather here every few years to make decisions that affect the entire galaxy. But those decisions are based on incomplete information, political maneuvering, and outright lies. Species vote not based on what is true, but on what benefits them. Alliances shift based on secret deals and hidden agendas, and all the while you prepare for wars with each other because you cannot trust what anyone else is doing. He gestured at the hologram, still showing the thousands of human monitoring stations. Humanity saw this system and realized something important. We cannot survive in a galaxy that operates this way. We could build bigger weapons. We could make stronger alliances. We could try to play the same game everyone else is playing, but that would not solve the fundamental problem. Which is? Asked the elderly Skorath delegate. That no one knows what anyone else is actually doing, Jiho replied. You make plans based on assumptions. You take actions based on fears. You start conflicts based on misunderstandings, and it happens because information is power. So everyone hoards information. Everyone keeps secrets. Everyone operates in the dark and hopes for the best. He looked around the chamber. But there is another way. Taeyang Park stood up from his position in the human section. The military attaché had been silent until now. He moved to join Jiho at the center of the chamber. I am Commander Park of Earth Defense Forces, he said. For the past 3 days, many of you have shared concerns about human military activities. I want to address those concerns directly. The hologram changed to show human military installations. These are our defensive stations. You have called them aggressive, you have called them threatening, but look at what they defend against. The display overlaid Council military movements. 17 species have positioned forces around human space. 43 Council vessels are currently within strike range of human colonies. 12 species maintain active military monitoring of human communications and movements. Taeyang's voice was firm but not angry. Every action we have taken has been in response to your actions. Every station we built was built because your ships were approaching. Every weapon we deployed was deployed because your weapons were already pointed at us. We are not the aggressors. We are the ones being surrounded. You are outnumbered, Tharn said. Of course you are surrounded. Exactly, Taeyang agreed. We are outnumbered, which means we cannot win through military force. We never could. So we had to find another way to ensure our survival. He gestured at the monitoring stations. This is that way. Not weapons, not armies, information, understanding. The ability to see what is coming before it arrives. Jiho stepped forward again. But here is what we realized. This same problem affects all of you. The Velcros do not trust the Chitrix because they cannot see what the Chitrix are planning. The Pelorans fear the Shardborn for the same reason. Every species lives in fear because every species is blind to what others are doing. He paused, letting the weight of his next words build. So humanity has a proposal. The chamber was completely silent now. Every delegate focused on Jiho, waiting to hear what humanity wanted. What price would they demand for not revealing more secrets? What leverage would they use with all the information they had gathered? Earth proposes the creation of the Galactic Intelligence Cooperative, Jiho said clearly. A shared monitoring and information network accessible to every council species. Confused murmurs rippled through the delegates. This was not what they expected. Here is how it would work, Jiho continued. Every member species contributes monitoring stations, sensor arrays, and intelligence-gathering assets to a combined network. In exchange, every member species gets access to all the information collected by the entire network. Hana activated the hologram to show a new diagram. The existing human monitoring stations turned from red to green. New markers appeared in different colors around them. The Velcros would maintain stations in regions near their space, Jiho explained. The Chitrix would contribute assets in their areas of interest. The Pelorans, the Shardborn, everyone would add their capabilities to the network. And everyone would be able to access what everyone else's stations are observing. That is insane, a Chitrix delegate said. You are asking us to give away our intelligence capabilities. No, Jiho corrected. I am asking you to share them. There is a difference. Tharn's eyes narrowed. Why would humanity propose this? You already have a monitoring network that covers everything. Why would you give us access to it? Because the current situation is unsustainable, Jiho said. Right now, only humanity knows what everyone else is doing. That gives us an enormous advantage, but it also makes us a target. Every species in this room wants to know what we know. They want to steal our intelligence. They want to destroy our monitoring network. Or they want to force us to share it through threats and sanctions. He gestured at the assembled delegates. This proposal removes that problem. You want to know what we know? Fine. We will tell you. All of you. At the same time. But then everyone will know what everyone else is doing, protested a Peloran. There will be no privacy. No ability to conduct secret operations. Exactly, Jiho said. That is the point. The chamber erupted in arguments again. Many delegates immediately rejected the idea. It was too radical, too dangerous. It would strip away their ability to maneuver politically or prepare military operations in secret. But a few delegates remained quiet, thinking carefully about what was being proposed. The elderly Skorath delegate was one of them. She stood slowly and waited for the noise to die down. Ambassador Kang, let me make sure I understand. Under your proposal, if the Velcros began moving military forces toward Chitrix space, the Chitrix would know immediately? Yes, Jiho confirmed. The monitoring network would detect the movement and make that information available to all members. And if the Pelorans were planning an economic blockade of Shardborn trade routes, the network would detect the ships and supply movements needed to prepare such a blockade. The Shardborn would see it coming. And if my own government, the Skorath, were preparing to steal technology from the Ethon? The network would detect the intelligence assets being moved into position. The Ethon would be warned. The Skorath delegate considered this. So no species could prepare for war without everyone else knowing. Correct. No government could conduct secret operations. Correct. No one could plot against their neighbors in darkness. That is the idea. She sat down slowly. It would change everything. Yes, Jiho agreed. It would. Tharn's voice was sharp. And what prevents humanity from maintaining secret monitoring stations outside this network? You have already proven you can hide assets from us for 15 years. What stops you from keeping some hidden while we give you access to all of ours? That is a fair question, Jiho acknowledged. The answer is verification. The network itself would be designed to detect any monitoring stations not registered in the system. If humanity tried to maintain secret assets, the other species' stations would eventually discover them. Eventually is not immediately, Tharn pressed. No, Jiho admitted, which is why Earth is willing to make an additional concession. We will provide the technical specifications for our monitoring technology to the cooperative. Every species will be able to build stations equivalent to ours, and we will help install the verification systems that can detect unauthorized monitoring. A shard-born delegate crystalline body pulsed with skeptical light. Why would you give away your technological advantage? Because keeping it makes us enemies of everyone, Jiho said simply. And because what we are offering in exchange is far more valuable than a temporary advantage. What are you offering? Asked an Ethon delegate. Peace, Jiho said. Real peace. Not the kind based on treaties that everyone secretly violates. Not the kind based on balance of power that shifts every time someone develops a new weapon. Peace based on transparency, on mutual verification, on everyone knowing what everyone else is doing. He walked slowly around the chamber's central platform, making eye contact with different delegates. Think about what this means. The Velcros would not need to fear a surprise attack from the Chitrix because they would see it being prepared. The Pelorans would not need to worry about shard-born expansion because they would watch it happening in real time and could negotiate before it became a crisis. The Skorath would not need to steal Ethan technology because they could simply ask for it, knowing that the Ethon would be less defensive when they were not worried about secret theft. You make it sound ideal, said a delegate, but you are describing a galaxy without privacy, without the ability for governments to plan and act independently. I am describing a galaxy where governments plan and act responsibly, Jiho corrected, because they know others are watching, because they know they will be held accountable, because they cannot start wars based on lies and hidden agendas. Taiyang spoke up again. Let me put this in military terms. Right now, 43 council vessels surround human space. From a strategic perspective, this is a threat. If we did not have our monitoring network, we would not know if those vessels were preparing to attack or just conducting patrols. We would have to assume the worst. We would have to prepare countermeasures. The situation would escalate based on fear and uncertainty. He gestured at the hologram. But because we can monitor those vessels, we know what they are actually doing. We know they are not preparing an immediate attack. We know they are not loading weapons or moving into strike formations. We can relax. We can focus on other things. The mere act of knowing reduces tension. Now imagine that same principle applied galaxy-wide, Jiho said. Every species would benefit from reduced tension. Fewer conflicts starting from misunderstandings. Fewer resources wasted on defensive measures against threats that do not actually exist. More stability, more predictability, more trust. But trust requires vulnerability, said the Skorath delegate. You are asking us to become vulnerable by exposing our actions to everyone. I am asking you to become safer by ensuring everyone else is equally exposed, Jiho replied. Vulnerability without reciprocity is weakness. But mutual vulnerability is strength. A young delegate from a species called the Meranthi stood. They were a relatively new council member with only 3 systems to their name. Ambassador Kang, my people are small. We have limited resources and no powerful military. Under the current system, we survive by staying quiet and hoping the larger species ignore us. Under your proposal, what changes for us? Jiho smiled at them. Everything changes. Right now, you are vulnerable because you are weak and because you cannot see threats coming. If a larger species decided to absorb your territory, you might not know until it was too late. Under the cooperative, you would see any threat developing. And more importantly, so would everyone else. Other species could not act against you secretly. They would have to do it openly, which means facing political and potentially military consequences from the rest of the council. The Meranthi delegate looked thoughtful. So, smaller species would be protected by transparency. Protected by accountability, Jiho clarified. When everyone can see what everyone else is doing, the cost of aggression goes up, because you cannot claim it was a misunderstanding or an accident. You cannot hide behind diplomatic language. Your actions are visible and verifiable. Other smaller species delegates began murmuring to each other. The proposal suddenly looked more interesting to them. The terms are simple, Jiho said, raising his voice to address the full chamber again. Earth will share our monitoring technology and our existing intelligence network. Earth will help establish the Galactic Intelligence Cooperative Infrastructure. Earth will train personnel from every species in the operation and maintenance of the system. In exchange, the Council will lift all proposed sanctions against humanity. You will recognize our right to expand freely, just like any other species, and you will share your own intelligence assets and capabilities with the cooperative. He paused. Additionally, Earth will share our faster-than-light drive technology, complete specifications, manufacturing processes, everything you need to build drives equivalent to ours. That brought shocked silence. The FTL drive was one of humanity's most protected secrets. Multiple species had tried to steal or reverse engineer it for decades. Why? Tharn asked. Why would you give away your greatest technological advantage? Because it is not our greatest advantage, Jiho said. Our greatest advantage is that we understand something the rest of you have not yet learned. Information is more valuable than any technology. Truth is more powerful than any weapon. And transparency is the foundation of real security. He looked around the chamber one last time. Humanity came here today knowing we could not win through force. We are outnumbered. We are surrounded. By traditional measures, we should be helpless. But we are not helpless because we changed the game. We stopped trying to win the old game and started playing a new one. And if we refuse your proposal? Tharn asked quietly. Jiho's expression remained calm, but something cold flickered in his eyes. Then we will discuss what happens next. The temperature in the chamber seemed to drop. Delegates who had been arguing moments before now sat in tense silence. Tharn's armored plates shifted as he straightened to his full, imposing height. Is that a threat, Ambassador? The Velcro's leader's voice carried an edge of danger. It is a reality, Jiho replied evenly. If this council rejects our proposal, then humanity continues exactly as we have been. Alone, watching, growing, making friends where we can, avoiding enemies where we must. You cannot stand against the full council, a Chitrix delegate said. Your 23 systems cannot withstand the combined might of 47 species. You are correct, Jiho agreed. In a direct military confrontation, humanity would lose. But I think you are beginning to understand that we do not plan to fight that kind of war. Hana adjusted the holographic display. It now showed communication networks spanning the galaxy, trade routes, information highways, diplomatic channels. We have been monitoring your communications for 15 years, Jiho said. We know which species are unhappy with council leadership. We know which colonies feel oppressed by their homeworld governments. We know which corporations are frustrated with regulations. We know which military commanders disagree with their political leaders. We know everything. Sora Nam stood from her position in the human section. The chief scientist approached the central platform, her expression serious. "Let me be very clear about what this means from a technical standpoint," Sora said. "The information we have collected is not just military intelligence. It is social, economic, political, and cultural data on an unprecedented scale. We understand the internal dynamics of every council species better than some of those species understand themselves." She pulled up a detailed chart. For example, we know that 37% of Velcro's military officers believe their current government is too aggressive and would prefer a more diplomatic approach to galactic affairs. We know that Chitrix colony worlds have been requesting more autonomy from their central government for 2 decades. We know that Peloran trade guilds are frustrated with government controls that limit their economic growth. Delegates shifted uncomfortably as Sora listed example after example. Private grievances, internal tensions, buried scandals, all laid bare. "This information could be very valuable to the right people," Sora continued. "Dissident groups, opposition parties, separatist movements, reform advocates, all of them would benefit from knowing they are not alone, from understanding how many others share their concerns, from having detailed information about government operations that affect them." "You would start civil wars," Tharn said, his voice low and dangerous. "You would tear apart stable governments." "We would provide information to people who want change," Jiho corrected. "What they do with that information would be their choice. But yes, governments that rely on keeping their populations ignorant would face challenges." "This is worse than military invasion," protested a Peloran. "You would destroy civilizations from within." "Civilizations that cannot survive transparency probably should not survive," Jiho said coldly. Then his expression softened slightly. "But Earth has no desire to destroy anyone. That is why we are offering the cooperative. That is why we want to work with you, not against you." The elderly Skorath delegate spoke up again. "You are showing us the stick, what you could do if we refuse. But you already showed us the carrot, the benefits of cooperation. Why threaten us at all?" "Because some species only respond to threats," Jiho said honestly. "Because some leaders would rather risk destruction than accept change. Because I need everyone in this chamber to understand that humanity is not asking for permission. We are offering a choice." Taeyang stepped forward. "Let me add a military perspective on what happens if you reject the cooperative. Right now, you have forces surrounding our space. You believe this gives you leverage, but your forces are exposed. We know their exact positions, their supply lines, their command structures, their communication protocols." He gestured at the hologram. "If you attack us, you will not be attacking a surprised enemy. You will be attacking an enemy that knows exactly where you are, what you are planning, and where you are vulnerable. More importantly, we would share that information with your rivals." A new display appeared, showing potential conflict scenarios. If the Velcros attack human colonies, we would provide complete intelligence on Velcro's fleet positions to the Chitrix, who have been planning their own operation against Velcro's space. If the Pelorans move against us, the Shardborn would receive detailed information about Peloran defensive weaknesses. You cannot attack us without exposing yourselves to your traditional enemies." "You would turn us against each other," a delegate said. "You are already against each other," Taeyang replied. "We would simply make sure that when you attack us, your enemies know exactly how to take advantage of your commitment elsewhere." Jiho raised a hand. "But again, this is not what we want. Chaos benefits no one. Not you, not us, not the galaxy. We are showing you these possibilities only to demonstrate that rejection carries costs, real costs, immediate costs." He walked back to the center of the chamber. There is another option I have not yet mentioned, one that would be worse for the Council than anything I have described so far. What could be worse than starting civil wars and turning us against each other? Tharn demanded. We could bypass the Council entirely, Jiho said. There are hundreds of species in this galaxy that are not part of the Council. Some are too primitive, some are too isolated. Some simply chose not to join. Under the current system, those species remain disconnected from galactic affairs. They develop on their own. They eventually make contact. Some join the Council, some do not. He paused. But what if they developed with access to information? What if emerging civilizations could see everything happening in Council space? What if they knew about your wars, your politics, your technologies, your mistakes? Sora picked up the thread. Earth could offer our monitoring network access to non-Council species, not as members, not with the same responsibilities, but as observers. They would watch the Council make decisions. They would see how power is exercised. They would learn what kind of organization they might be joining. You would create an entire galaxy of informed civilizations, the Skorath delegate said slowly, all of them making decisions based on perfect information about Council operations. Some might choose to join the Council anyway, Jiho said. Some might form their own alliances instead. Some might decide that the Council represents everything they want to avoid, but all of them would choose based on truth rather than the carefully managed narrative the Council presents. The implications were staggering. The Council maintained power partly through information control. New species entering the galactic community had limited knowledge of how things really worked. They saw the official face of the Council, the diplomatic speeches, the formal structures. They did not see the secret deals, the military threats, the political manipulation. You would undermine our authority with every emerging civilization, Tharn said. We would give them the information to make informed choices, Jiho replied. If that undermines your authority, perhaps your authority deserves to be undermined. A Moranthi delegate stood. Ambassador Kang, you speak of sharing information with non-Council species, but you have not offered to share information with smaller Council members, with species like mine who have little power and less influence. Why? Jiho smiled. An excellent question. And you have identified exactly why the cooperative is necessary. Under the current system, information flows to the powerful. The Velcros know more than you do. The Chitrix have better intelligence networks than you can afford. The larger species keep the smaller ones ignorant because knowledge is power. He gestured at the assembled delegates. The cooperative changes this. When information is shared equally, the power imbalance decreases. You would know as much as the Velcros about threats to your security. You would see the same intelligence about economic opportunities. You would have the same advance warning about potential conflicts. More smaller species delegates were paying close attention now. Several were taking notes. This is why some of the larger species will resist the cooperative, Jiho continued. They benefit from the current system. They enjoy their advantages. But the galaxy is changing. Humanity is here now, and we have proven that information dominance is achievable for species willing to pursue it aggressively. If we do not accept your cooperative, Jiho said, then other species will eventually develop their own monitoring networks. The technology is not that complicated once you know it is possible. Within a few decades, dozens of species will be spying on each other with increasing sophistication. The current system will collapse into informational chaos. Or, he continued, the Council can accept humanity's proposal, create a structured, regulated, transparent system that benefits everyone, turn espionage from a competitive threat into a cooperative strength. Tharn was silent for a long moment. His 4 eyes moved from delegate to delegate, reading the room. Many species looked uncertain. Others looked intrigued. A few looked angry or afraid. You have painted a very compelling picture of why we should accept your proposal, Tharn finally said, and an equally compelling picture of the consequences if we refuse. But you are asking us to make a decision that will reshape galactic civilization. That will change how we have operated for thousands of years. You expect us to agree to this in a single session? No, Jiho said. I expect you to recess and discuss among yourselves. Consult with your governments. Consider the implications. Then vote. And what guarantee do we have that you will not use the time during our recess to cause trouble? To share damaging information with our enemies? To undermine our governments while we deliberate? Jiho met Tharn's gaze steadily. You have my word as Earth's representative that we will not actively spread the information we have collected while the Council debates this proposal. We will wait for your decision. The word of someone who admitted to spying on us for 15 years? A Chitrix delegate said sarcastically. The word of someone who could have used that information at any time, Jiho countered. The word of someone who gathered intelligence not to attack you but to understand you. The word of someone who came here today offering cooperation instead of conquest. He stood straight, his voice firm. Humanity kept its secrets while we built our strength, but we chose this moment to reveal ourselves. We chose this moment to offer you a path forward. We chose transparency over continued deception. That choice should tell you something about our intentions. The chamber was quiet again. Delegates exchanged glances. Some activated communication devices to send messages back to their homeworlds. The Council will recess, Tharn announced. We will reconvene in 4 days. Each species will have time to consult with their governments and consider Earth's proposal. Ambassador Kang, you and your team will remain available for questions during this period. Of course, Jiho agreed. And Ambassador? Tharn's voice carried a warning. If we discover you have violated your promise and spread information during our recess, there will be consequences. Jiho nodded. Understood. But Council Leader, let me leave you with one final thought. What is that? 4 days from now, you will vote. Some of you will vote for the cooperative. Some will vote against it. But consider this carefully. If even a significant minority of species vote in favor, they could form the cooperative without council approval. A parallel structure. And species not in that structure would find themselves at a disadvantage, blind to what member species are doing while remaining visible to everyone else. He let that sink in. So the question is not really whether this happens. The question is whether it happens with council guidance and structure, or whether it happens around the council, undermining your authority permanently. Tharn had no response to that. The session ended. Delegates filed out, already arguing among themselves. Some species huddled in groups, others retreated to their quarters to think alone. Jiho and his team returned to their assigned space. Once the door sealed behind them, Hana let out a long breath. That was intense, she said. It had to be, Jiho replied. He sat down heavily. They needed to understand both what we offer and what we could do. Fear and hope. The stick and the carrot. Do you think they will accept? Taeyang asked. Jiho was quiet for a moment. Some will, others will not. But enough will vote yes to make it work. Because the alternative is chaos. Sora pulled up a display showing the delegates who had left the chamber. The smaller species are our best chance. They have the most to gain from transparency. And the least to lose, Hana added. Jiho nodded. The next 4 days will determine the future of this galaxy, not just for us, for everyone. He looked out at the stars through the small viewport. Earth was out there somewhere, waiting, trusting him to make the right choice. He hoped he had. 4 days felt like 4 years. Jiho spent the time answering questions. Delegates came to the human quarters in small groups. Some were curious, others were suspicious. All of them wanted to understand exactly what they were being asked to accept. The Moranthi delegate came with representatives from 6 other small species. They sat around the simple table in the human meeting room, their concern obvious. We want to believe this cooperative will protect us, the Moranthi said. But history tells us that powerful species always find ways to maintain their advantages. How do we know this system will not just become another tool for the strong to control the weak? Jiho appreciated the directness. You are right to be skeptical, but consider the fundamental design. Information is contributed by everyone and accessible to everyone. There is no hierarchy in data access. A species with 3 systems sees the same intelligence as a species with 300 systems. But larger species can contribute more monitoring stations, another small species delegate pointed out. More assets means more control over the network. More contribution, yes. More control, no, Sora explained. She had set up a technical demonstration of how the cooperative would function. The network operates on a distributed model. No single point of control. No species can shut down monitoring stations belonging to others. No government can filter what information reaches other members. She showed them simulations. Even if the Velcros contribute 1,000 stations and you contribute 10, your 10 stations report to the same database their 1,000 stations do. You both see the same complete picture. The delegates studied the technical specs carefully. They asked detailed questions. Sora answered each one with patience. Other species sent different types of delegations. The Chitrix brought economic analysts who wanted to understand the trade implications. The Pelorans sent security experts who questioned the verification protocols. The Shardborn dispatched cultural scholars who worried about privacy and individual rights. Jiho met with all of them. Sometimes he had good answers. Sometimes he admitted the cooperative would require compromises, but he never wavered from the core message. Transparency beats secrecy. Verification enables trust. Mutual vulnerability creates security. On the 3rd day, Tharn himself came to the human quarters. He arrived alone, which was unusual for a council leader. His massive frame filled the doorway. "May I come in?" he asked formally. "Of course," Jiho replied. He gestured to a reinforced chair designed to hold Velcro's weight. Tharn sat carefully. For a moment, neither spoke. The council leader studied Jiho with his 4 eyes, as if trying to see past the human's calm exterior. "I have consulted with my government," Tharn finally said. "They are divided. Some see wisdom in your proposal. Others see only threat and manipulation." "And you?" Jiho asked. "What do you see?" "I see a species that outmaneuvered 47 others," Tharn said bluntly. "I see humans who played a game we did not know we were playing. I see an ambassador who sat quietly for 3 days while we accused him of crimes, knowing he held evidence that would turn our accusations back on us." He leaned forward. "I see someone very dangerous." "Dangerous to whom?" Jiho asked. "To the established order. To the way things have always been. To those of us who have grown comfortable with power. Is that a bad thing?" Tharn's laugh was bitter. "That depends on whether you are the one losing power. My species has led the council for 200 years. We have maintained stability. We have prevented wars. We have guided the expansion of civilization across this galaxy. And now you come and tell us that our methods are obsolete. That everything we built is flawed." "Not obsolete," Jiho said carefully. "Incomplete. The council has accomplished remarkable things, but it has also relied on information asymmetry to function. The powerful know more than the weak. The established species control what new species learn, and everyone spies on everyone else while pretending not to." "That is how governments work," Tharn said. "That is how they have always worked." "For humans, too," Jiho agreed. "Our nations spent centuries operating the same way. Secret alliances, hidden capabilities, intelligence agencies spying on both enemies and friends. It nearly destroyed us several times." "What changed?" Jiho stood and walked to the viewport. Earth was not visible from this angle, but he looked in that general direction anyway. "We had a war. A terrible war. Nuclear weapons. biological attacks, millions dead, cities destroyed, and when it was over, the survivors asked themselves why it happened. He turned back to Tharn. The answer was uncomfortable. The war started because nations did not trust each other. They did not trust each other because they could not see what each other was doing. They built weapons in secret. They made alliances in darkness. They planned strikes based on incomplete information and exaggerated fears. And eventually, those fears became self-fulfilling. So humanity learned from its mistakes, Tharn said. That is admirable. But why force those lessons on us? Why not let each species learn in its own way? Because we cannot afford to wait, Jiho said simply. Your wars will not be contained to single planets anymore. Your weapons are powerful enough to sterilize worlds. Your conflicts can spread across dozens of systems. If the Council tears itself apart the way Earth nearly did, the casualties will be measured in billions across hundreds of worlds. He sat back down across from Tharn. We did not come here to save you from yourselves. We came to save ourselves from being caught in your wars. But the only way to do that is to change how everyone operates, including us. Tharn was quiet for a long time. If the vote passes, he finally said, things will never be the same. No, Jiho agreed. They will not. The Council will lose authority. Nations will lose privacy. Leaders will lose the ability to maneuver in shadows. Yes. Many will hate you for this. Probably. Tharn stood. I have not decided how my government will vote, but I wanted to meet with you personally, to understand the human who is changing the galaxy. I am just a diplomat, Jiho said, following orders, representing my species. No, Tharn said, you are more than that, and you know it. He walked to the door, then paused. One more question, Ambassador. You said humanity could not stand against the full Council in a military conflict, but you never seemed worried, even when we threatened sanctions or occupation. Why? Jiho smiled faintly. Because wars are not won by those with the most weapons, Council Leader. They are won by those who understand the battlefield. And the battlefield we are fighting on is not measured in ships or weapons. It is measured in information and ideas. And you believe you have already won? I believe we changed the question. You cannot defeat an idea by pointing a gun at it. You can only defeat it with a better idea. And I do not think you have one. Tharn studied him for a moment longer, then left without another word. The next day, the Council reconvened. The massive chamber filled with delegates again, but the atmosphere was different, less hostile, more uncertain. Everyone knew this vote would matter in ways that went beyond normal Council business. Tharn called the session to order. We have deliberated for 4 days. We have consulted with our governments. We have heard presentations from Earth's delegation. Now we must decide. He outlined the proposal one more time. The creation of the Galactic Intelligence Cooperative, shared monitoring networks, universal access to intelligence, transparency in military movements, verification of compliance. This is not a simple vote, Tharn said. This is a decision about what kind of galaxy we want to live in. A galaxy where secrets provide security, or a galaxy where truth provides security. Each delegate will now vote. The voting system activated. Each species could vote yes, no, or abstain. The results would be displayed publicly once all votes were recorded. Jiho sat calmly while delegates entered their choices. He did not watch them, did not try to count or predict. He simply waited. Hana sat beside him, her hands clasped tightly. Taiyang and Sora watched the delegates carefully, trying to read reactions. The voting took 15 minutes. When the last delegate confirmed their choice, Tharn activated the display. The numbers appeared. 42 species voted yes, 3 species voted no, 2 species abstained. The chamber filled with shocked murmurs. 89% approval, more than anyone expected. Tharn's voice was steady as he read the results. The measure passes. The Galactic Intelligence Cooperative is hereby established. Ambassador Kang, on behalf of the Council, I offer you the position of Director of the Cooperative, reporting to an oversight board composed of representatives from all member species. Jiho stood. I accept. The formalities took another hour. The structure of the oversight board was defined. The timeline for implementation was set. Technical teams were assigned. Resources were allocated. When it was done, Jiho felt exhausted. He had not slept properly in days. He had carried the weight of his species' future on his shoulders. And now, somehow, it had worked. As delegates began to leave the chamber, Tharn approached him again. This is not over, the Velcros leader said quietly. Many species voted yes out of fear, not conviction. Some will work to undermine the cooperative from within. Others will test its limits. The real work is just beginning. I know, Jiho replied. But the foundation is established. That is what matters. Why? Tharn asked suddenly. Tell me honestly, why did humanity do this? You could have kept your advantages secret. You could have used your intelligence network to manipulate galactic politics for decades. Why reveal everything? Why offer to share? Jiho looked at the empty chamber. Soon it would fill with delegates again, but they would be operating under different rules. Rules humanity had written. Because my species learned something important, he said finally. The greatest weapon in the galaxy is not a bomb or a gun. It is ignorance. Ignorance breeds fear. Fear breeds violence. Violence breeds more ignorance. It is a cycle that destroys civilizations. He turned to Tharn. The only way to break that cycle is with truth. Uncomfortable, inconvenient, dangerous truth. We could have hoarded that truth, used it for our advantage. But then we would just be perpetuating the same cycle. We would be making the same mistakes that nearly destroyed Earth. So you chose to share the truth instead, Tharn said. We chose to make truth the foundation of galactic civilization, Jiho corrected. We chose transparency over secrecy. We chose verification over trust. We chose accountability over power. Tharn was quiet for a moment. Then he did something unexpected. He extended one of his massive arms in the Velcros gesture of respect. Jiho returned the gesture as best he could. The human and the Velcros stood together in the empty chamber, two leaders acknowledging what had just happened. A week later, Jiho stood in the command center of the Cooperative's first official facility. It was located on the same asteroid as the Council Chamber, but in a separate section. The walls were covered with displays showing data streams from thousands of monitoring stations across the galaxy. Species had begun contributing their assets to the network. Slowly at first, cautiously. But the data was flowing. The galaxy was becoming visible in ways it never had been before. Hana came to stand beside him. It is beautiful, she said softly, watching the information cascade across screens. It is terrifying, Jiho replied. Look at how much we did not know, how much we still do not know. But now we can learn, Hana pointed out. Together, if it works. It will work. Jiho wished he had her confidence. But he thought about Tharn's words. The real work was just beginning. Building the network was one thing. Maintaining it was another. Ensuring it served everyone fairly would be the biggest challenge of all. But for now, in this moment, he allowed himself to feel satisfaction. Earth had been surrounded, outnumbered, facing sanctions or worse, and they had won, not through weapons, not through threats, but through information and ideas. Tai Yang entered the command center carrying a data tablet. Message from Earth. The President wants to speak with you. Jiho took the tablet and moved to a private communication room. The secure channel activated, and the President's face appeared. Ambassador Kang. Or should I say, Director Kang now. Jiho is fine, Madam President. She smiled. What you accomplished was extraordinary. The entire planet is celebrating. You changed everything. We changed one thing, Jiho corrected. We changed how information works in this galaxy. But there are still wars to prevent, economic crises to manage. 1,000 problems we have not even identified yet. Always the pessimist, the president said fondly. But that is why I chose you for this assignment. You never assume victory. You plan for every possibility. You see problems others miss. I learned from Earth's history, Jiho said. We have made so many mistakes. I wanted to make sure we did not repeat them out here. And you succeeded. The cooperative is humanity's gift to the galaxy, the gift of truth. The gift is also a burden, Jiho said. Truth is uncomfortable. Some species will hate it. They will blame us for forcing change on them. Let them, the president said firmly. We did the right thing. History will prove that. After the call ended, Jiho returned to the command center. He stood watching the data streams, thinking about what came next. Knowing changes everything, he said quietly to himself. Hana heard him. What? He gestured at the displays. All of this information, all of these secrets now revealed. Knowing what others are doing changes how everyone behaves. They cannot plot in darkness anymore. They cannot hide their intentions. They have to be honest, or at least more honest than they were. Is that enough? Hana asked. Forcing honesty through surveillance? It is a start, Jiho said. Real trust takes time. But you cannot build trust without truth, and you cannot have truth without verification. We are giving this galaxy the tools to verify, to know, to understand. What they do with those tools will determine whether we succeed or fail. He turned from the displays to look at his team. Hana, Taiyang, Sora, and a growing group of others from dozens of species, all of them working together to build something new. The Council operated on secrets for thousands of years, he said. We changed that in 4 days. But the real test comes now. Can we build a civilization based on transparency? Can we prove that knowing is better than guessing? Can we show that truth is stronger than lies? We will find out, Taeyang said. Yes, Jiho agreed. We will. He looked back at the displays one more time. Somewhere out there, the galaxy was watching. Thousands of monitoring stations reporting millions of data points every second, every fleet movement visible, every government decision tracked, every secret slowly becoming known. It was messy, it was uncomfortable, it would create new problems even as it solved old ones. But it was better than the alternative, better than ignorance, better than fear, better than wars started by misunderstanding and accidents. Humanity had come to the stars expecting to find advanced civilizations. Instead, they found species still making the same mistakes Earth had made centuries ago, still trapped in cycles of secrecy and suspicion. And humanity had offered them a way out, not through superior weapons or advanced technology, but through the simplest and most powerful tool of all, the truth. And knowing the truth, Jiho thought, changes everything.